Hello everybody, welcome back to the show. In the last episode, I made the basic steam turbine so I could finally produce some electrical power. But as I mentioned, I don't actually have any equipment, or any machinery, I should say, that runs on electrical power. But I'm going to solve that in this episode. Now, there's a lot of machinery that you can make that run off of the electrical power. Not all of this is machinery. Some of these are parts for multi-block structures, but needless to say, there is quite a bit of machinery that can be made. Now, and in fact, all of these machines that I have that run on steam power, macerator, forge hammers, furnaces, alloy smelters, compressors and extractors and whatever else, there are electrical versions of those as well. However, it's probably not a great idea to make those items into electrical items because they're already working and they're already running off of steam power. Plus, I'm not really making that much electrical power, so I'm going to want to be a little bit stingy in the beginning of what I'm going to make. Generally speaking, what you're probably going to want to make is any of the machinery that will help you make items for less cost than what it takes now. And I'll explain that a little bit better in a minute. But there are varying ways to do that. There's a lot of machines that make things cheaper to make. And there's probably different people will have different ideas on what should be made first. What the first electrical machine that you will make will be. But I don't think that any of the reasons are wrong. I just think it's a matter of your own personal preference, what you want to do, and maybe what you find to be the most annoying. It might also be a matter of what materials you have. If you have a scarcity of a certain type of material, you may want to be able to use that material more efficiently, whether that be iron or copper or redstone or whatever. So for this particular instance, I have decided that the first thing I want to make is the Wiremill. And the parts are here, I believe. I need an LV machine hull, 2 tin cables, 2 electronic circuits, and 4 electric motors. Now, in the last episode, I kind of went step by step in making the basic steam turbine. I am not going to do that for every single piece of equipment. You have access to NEI. It's very easy to look at any of these and find out how to make things. So I'm not going to do that for every single piece of equipment. Now, if there's something new or different or unique, I will be happy to show how something is made. But other than that, I don't want to waste a lot of video time with making every single little item. So as you can see, the parts I've already made in advance, and this is going to give me the basic Wiremill. Now that I have the basic Wiremill, I need to give it power that comes out of the steam turbine. And I believe that this little dot here is where the power comes out. And so theoretically, if I place this down like so, you can see it is fluctuating because it used some steam to create electrical power and then it would refill that steam back up. Now, there is an internal buffer of power within the Wiremill. Unfortunately, there's no number or even a bar or anything that shows from here anyway what that buffer of power is. Later down the line, there's a handheld tool, I believe, that will show that kind of information. But as you can see right now, there's nothing to show that. But there is an internal buffer of power. Now, the Wiremill, what does it do? Well, it makes wires, and it does so very well. So let's take, for example, a copper wire, or a copper ingot. And if I put the copper ingot into the Wiremill, you will see it runs through. It's pretty quick, which is nice. Some wires, some materials will take longer than others. But as you can see, as I get done here, I have 2 copper wires. And so I get wire just like that. Now, if you remember from the last episode, making wire required taking 2 ingots, hammering them together to make a plate, and then using wire cutters on that plate to make the wire. 1 wire. 2 ingots made 1 wire. Here you can see 1 ingot makes 2 wires. So in other words, I have quadrupled the effectiveness of making wire. And this is what I was talking about before when I said that this machinery will allow you to make items cheaper. You know, so instead of using 1 ingot to make, or I'm sorry, 2 ingots to make 1 wire, I can use 1 ingot to make 2 wires. And that's really good. It, you know, I'm going to have to make a lot of wire, so I'm saving myself some material in the form of that metal every time I do so. And that's why you want to start off making these types of things. Now, the next thing that I want to make is the plate bender. So I'm going to work on gathering all the parts for that, and I will show it to you when it's done. All right, then I'm working on making the basic vending machine. And one of the items necessary for this basic vending machine is an electric piston. We've seen all these other items before. And the electric piston, as you can see here, is made up from steel plates, tin cables, steel rods, again, all stuff we know about, and electric motor, but also this small steel gear. This is actually fairly easy to make. All you need is a plate, and you hammer it. And the hammer, I think it goes in this configuration, and that will give you a small steel gear. So that's pretty easy. So like I said, you do that and you do that, and now I should be able to make these electric pistons. Oh, maybe not. Well, why not? I think I have the tin cables and the steel plates. Let me go back in here and look. I think I have all of this stuff. Tin motor, steel rods, yeah, electric motor I should say, steel plates, and tin cables, and steel gears. I'm missing something. I'm always seeming to miss something. Oh, that's right, this goes like this, like so. Okay, so I'm not sure why that didn't auto fill in, but there you go. That's how you make these electric pistons. And I think I now have 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. I'm missing something. What am I missing? I'm missing tin cable. No, I got the tin cables. Oh, I'm missing the electric circuit. Oh, I didn't make the electric circuits. I made NAND chips. Oh, I screwed up. I'll be back. Oh, that's much better. Electronic circuits. I don't know why I just made NAND chips. I must have lost my train of thought when I was doing stuff. So anyway, if I put all of this together, which, you know, theoretically it should be easier than it really is, but let's see, pistons up there, motors there, electronic circuits this way maybe, and some tin cables. No, oh, maybe this gets all swapped around. Yeah, there we go. Basic vending machine. All right, let's take that guy out. So what we can do is, now this again, it's also an electrical machine, and of course that means it also requires electrical power. So I used to own a wrench, and apparently I do not own a wrench anymore. Or am I just not seeing it? Oh, brother. Okay, wrench. Got a new wrench. That's good. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take out the wire mill. And I can put down this vending machine. Again, it also runs off of power. It also has an internal buffer of some kind. And the basic vending machine actually does all kinds of different recipes. As you can see, there's quite a few of them in here. They make everything from battery foil to plates and all kinds of other stuff. But in order to use this, you need to have an integrated circuit. Now, if you see here, for this particular recipe, an integrated circuit, and the configuration has to be 1. If you move to some others, you may see, there you go, there's one where the configuration has to equal 4. So the first thing we need to do is make one of these integrated circuits. And the integrated circuit is basically just an electronic circuit. It's just that simple. And then you use a screwdriver to give it different configurations. So you can see this is a configuration 1, but if I look at this, if I put it in this position, it would be configuration 2. And as you can see, it all goes all the way up to giving something a configuration of 24 even. So yes, so let me make another electronic circuit and we can get started using it. Alright, so I've made an electronic circuit, and again using electronic circuit will turn that into an integrated circuit with a configuration equal to 0. And now I want to make that into a configuration of 1. So again, using the screwdriver in various positions will give it different configurations. Right now what I want is configuration 1. It's also important to note that you can change this to different configurations just by doing this. You'll note there's no durability on this integrated circuit, so you could constantly change it to other things or convert it back into a regular electronic circuit. But again, as I said, what I want is configuration 1. And if I go here to the vending machine, I can put the integrated circuit in this slot. It actually turns out that it doesn't matter if it's in this slot or that slot, but just to make sure it lines up with the pretty picture, I like to put it in the right spot. And with this, what it allows me to do is it allows me to make a plate. If I put in a steel ingot, for example, I will end up with a steel plate. So, again, this is another machine that helps you save on resources, because if you recall, I used to have to use 2 ingots to hammer into 1 plate. This is 1 ingot to make 1 plate. So the amount of resources needed is half. So that's really good. And as I mentioned before, some people would say you should make the wire mill first. Some people would say you make the vending machine first. I believe anyway that the idea with making a wire mill first is that you do end up making a lot of wires, because you have to make all of these circuits and that you have to make, and they all require all these wires and everything else. And so being able to make those cheaper is good. On the other hand, an argument can be made that the plate bending machine is good because you have to make all of these plates, and so being able to reduce the cost of each one of those would be nice as well. But probably ultimately do whatever you're comfortable with, do whatever you feel like you want to do. It probably doesn't matter. Play the game your way, and don't worry about what other people say. Try some experimentation. Maybe you want to make something other than these 2 machines first. That's completely up to you. Now, at this point, what you may have noticed is that I had a wire mill here in this position, and I took it out, I put in the plate bending machine. Obviously, you're not going to want to constantly swap out the machines in order to be able to use them. And you don't need to. You can run some cables which will transmit the LV electrical power. Now, depending on what cable you use, and there's all kinds of different types, has different effects. Now, we're dealing with LV, or low voltage power, and so we have a choice of cobalt cables, lead cables, tin cables, zinc cables, and that's it. Wait. Well, let's try to do that. Cobalt, lead, tin, zinc, and soldering alloy cables, and then the other then there are some MV cables and some others from there. But that's what we have in terms of the low voltage cables. As a quick side note, I don't know how to get cobalt with the PFAA mod installed. It doesn't seem like PFAA has any cobalt ore veins. So if any of you are familiar with PFAA and can tell me if it's possible to get cobalt, I haven't figured out a way to do that. The penlandite and nickel ores don't generate cobalt as a side product when you macerate them. So, or not macerate, but when you put them through the ore washing and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so if anybody knows, let me know. Not a big deal, but I would be curious. But what you'll see here is that depending on the size of the cable you use will determine the maximum amperage, and the type of cable you use will determine the loss of power per meter. So you can see here this cobalt cable loses 2 EU per meter, and so does lead, but the tin only loses 1 EU per meter. And that's usually the best that you're going to get, is losing 1 EU per meter. You're never going to have lossless power transmission through cables. So basically that's probably the best that you can get. And the amperage is, it's kind of a little bit hard to explain because I'm not an electrical engineer, but basically you can have 32 volts with times 12 amounts of 32 going through at a time. Whereas with the smaller cable, max amperage of 1, you can only have 32 times 1 going through that system. And it's important to know this because if you send through more volts or more amperage than what your cable can take, then your cable will burn up and you will lose it. And you definitely don't want to do that. So I believe, now I'm going to go ahead and take out the plate bender. It's not a plate bender, it's a bending machine, but I primarily at this point will be using it for plate bending. So there you go. And I did notice here on the tooltips, you'll see the capacity. That is the internal storage power amount that I was talking before, that all the machines have an internal storage. It doesn't show it on the machine itself, but it shows you here in the tooltips from for Minecraft that it is 2048. So I believe I can run a cable like this and like this. So basically power will come out of the steam turbine and into these cables. Now the power will only go if it has some place to go to. So it's not as though this is just making power and just sending it into a cable for no reason. It doesn't do that. But if I put a wire mill here, you will see that the cable connects, and now this does have power. So we can test that by making a quick copper wire like this, and you will see it's running, and there we have some copper wire. And now I can take the vending machine, put that on top of that. We'll see it connect there like so. And in fact, if I say let's go get a piece of steel and back over here and put that in, and you can see that it goes ahead and processes that into a steel plate. And so now I'm powering both of these machines from my one basic steam turbine. Now the basic steam turbine, I'm not entirely sure about how much power it produces. It may not be able to run both of those machines if they were running at the same time. Let's see, basic steam turbine. Yeah, probably not. If I tried to run them both at the same time, once either one of them ran through their, or if both of them, I should say, ran through their internal buffers, then the steam turbine probably would have difficulty powering both of them at the same time. But I won't be using them at the same time a lot. I'll be using them one or the other, monitoring my usage of them. But yeah, there we go. There is the first set of machinery, basic wire mill, and the basic bending machine. And as you can see, each one of those helps, makes wires cheaper, makes plates cheaper, and that is always good to have. And I guess I give you a little bit of information about how using your cables to run power. I should note that you can run power through just wires alone. You will need to use wire cutters if you ever want to remove these. It does require wire cutters to break these. Nothing else will break them. You can transmit power through just the wires. These are copper wire. I would need tin wire. Let's go ahead. Oop, that's my iron. Let's just do it as an show. I can show you how this works. We'll go this. Remember, this has an internal buffer. So if it's enough to process this, it will do so without having to be connected directly to power. But you can see here that the tin wire has a maximum voltage of 32, which is low voltage, 1 amp, and it loses 2 EU volts per meter. The cable, which is the one that's covered with, in this case it's wool and string, but you know, it's the one that's insulated essentially. The voltage and the amperage are going to be the same, but you'll see that it loses less per meter. So generally speaking, your covered cables, insulated cables, are going to do a lot better at not losing as much power over distance than just the wires. But you can theoretically just use a wire. But I believe you will take damage from wires that are not insulated. Now, I'm not taking any damage, so I can't say that that is a definite. But let's see what happens if I process a couple of things. Yep. Oh, I'm taking damage, see? So it's transmitting electricity through that wire, and I'm taking damage. Now, if I take these off and replace them with insulated ones, like so, and then we'll go ahead and grab a couple more and put them into process, and then stand next to it. You can see I'm not taking any damage now. So in addition to the fact that the wires, the uninsulated wires, have more loss of energy over distance, they will also cause damage. So I suppose if you wanted to create some type of perimeter system to fry zombies as they try to get in your base, you could probably do that. But in and around your base, you're probably going to want to use the insulated cables because it's going to be safer. All right. I think that's going to do it for this episode. I think that's a good stopping point. I do want to say thank you for everybody for all of your great comments in my last video. I am, as you can see, continuing the series, and I think it's going to work really, really well. I'm looking forward to some of the things I can do down the line. A lot of the stuff in the beginning of GregTech is a little mundane and monotonous and slow, and sometimes that can really sort of put you off, especially if you're used to playing with a lot of mods where you can get into them real quickly, heavily down the line, and do all kinds of automation and cool things and all that kind of stuff. But nevertheless, I am eager to continue on with the series. It's going to turn out really, really good. So if you have any comments or questions, if you have any hints, tips, tricks, if you have any advice, if you have any critiques, please leave them for me down in the comment section below. I love reading that stuff, and I love responding to it. You guys help me out so much and a lot of stuff, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.